it. I'm surprised she liked it. Oh, we live.
Yeah. Surprisingly, y'all got interest in taste in music. All right.
So interesting. So you ain't messing with it, is what you're saying?
All right. All right. All right.
I'm just saying, bro. Tell me if that's what it is. You ain't messing
Looks
with it,
like we
is what you're saying?
live. We live. We live. So let's see here. Let me get these links out. And
I know we live, but you ain't gonna ask that question though.
let's see. All right, so gentlemen, we live. Let me share these links and get the ball started on this. All right, let's see. Let's see. Shout out to everybody watching in. Just letting y'all know, give it a minute. We're trying to do the promo stuff until we get this going. Hit the like button. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right, let's see. All right, so that's it. Just give me a moment. Just want to share these links so everybody can tune in. And let me get the link for the other platform.
Turkey.
Hold on a second. I don't know what Maurice got going on over there, but yeah.
Hey, no, man, because you ain't gonna dodge that question, bro. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, we'll get to that after the show, though. Like, can we do that?
No, man, we gonna get to it right now. What's up,
Can we do
everybody?
that
What's
after the
up,
show, though? Like,
everybody? We gonna get it in. I'm just trying to lighten the mood, man. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely, absolutely. But
When the
yeah,
people
let's get.
listen to this, man, they gotta hear us in our raw form. You know?
Hey, that's facts. That's facts.
And I'm very raw and unpredictable, unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's well known. That's well known. All right, let's see.
Yeah, right. Let's not forget about the motels, baby. Motel 6 will leave the light on for you.
Hell nah. Hell nah. Talk about the Rose Motel with the sticky walls and the out of ice. No.
It's
Pillows and the
going
rugs.
down. It's going down. That thing gonna be fine.
The pillows and the rugs is crunchy as hell. Hell nah. Hell nah.
Sound like you need to do a little bit more living, my young brother.
I am living. Not in no damn motel though. Come on now. That ain't where it's happening at all.
Well, you ain't saying nothing. What my boy say, you don't know nothing till you been at Red Roof Inn room 222. Boy.
Trying to get me murdered, yeah. She's up to yo. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I ain't going to no damn Red Roof Inn either, bro. Mm-mm.
Yeah, but
Nah. Nah. That's the setup of a lifetime.
all right, besides Brother Melvin protesting motels, on a more serious note, man, we got a good little show lined up for y'all right quick. You know what I'm saying? It ain't gonna be too long. We just want to talk about a
Nah.
little history and culture about street organizations, or informally called gangs and gangs.
Yep.
Talk
So,
about it a little bit, opening up the box a little bit.
yep. So today, we doing. Let's first get to the intro of this. We were going to originally do this on the original channel, but We gotta wait like 24 hours before we can go live on there for some reason. So be it. We'll do it over here and we'll move it over. But yeah. So we got a new channel up, and we got channel up. We had some issues and discrepancies with the branding and whatnot, but nevertheless, we still here. Still black men in America, still gonna make it, still push through, still persevere. So we officially got the podcast name. The link is in the chat for those of y'all who looking to definitely subscribe. I would recommend doing that. It's just all the shows moving forward that pertain to the podcast format, the laid back chill format are gonna go over there. And the official podcast name, just gonna let y'all know now. Unless you make any changes, it's just gonna be You Ain't Finna Give It To Me Like That. So that's the name of the podcast. We're working on
bro.
some.
You're definitely not gonna give it to me like that.
Yeah, you can't give it to me like that.
Nah.
So yeah, we're gonna work on, some branding, some labels. We're gonna get this thing started right, and just keep it nice, laid back. Get you a nice cold drink. You know what I'm saying? Get you some chips or whatever, and you smoke. Roll your blunt, get your edibles, sit back, lay back, and fuck with the vibe. You know what I'm saying? So that's the movement. That's what we doing. That's where we at. That's the future. That's also the present. So definitely make sure you stay tuned to the podcast. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe.
All of that. We need all of that. We need all the views, all the likes, all the subscriptions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we ain't even gonna charge you $9.99 for the subscription. It's completely free for the free 99. So go ahead and get your subscription. We're gonna have a discussion today, and this discussion is gonna give you a sneak peek into what is to come on the podcast platform, where we talk today about gang culture and history. And today have a discussion. It's going to be enlightening. It's going to be informing. Some you may already know, with a little bit you may not even be aware of. So today we're definitely going to make sure we cover those bases and keep it chill. Shout out to the fellas on the platform. Maurice is here. You know how it is. And then also brother Tristan's here. He's definitely blessed us with his presence. So it's gonna be good. We got some more guests that said they come in. They on the way. So it should be interesting. But yeah, make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe. And you ain't gonna be able to give it to me like that. You ain't finna give it to us like that. So make sure you hit that like button.
Thanks.
All right, fellas, how y'all doing? How's your weekend? Y'all see the fight today, man? Fight today was pretty good.
Fortunately, I didn't get to check it out.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I didn't even see it, man.
Yeah, I had to do this thing today called what's it called? Work. Yeah. I had to do this thing work. So I didn't get to check everything out, man. This is about the first thing I'm able to check right now. Is this, Of course, on the airwaves at this point.
Yeah, most definitely.
I know Trez, he's probably on the beach all day.
Yeah, Trez be chilling out on the beach, man.
That's funny.
He on the West Coast. It's probably the sun going down right about now.
Probably sitting on fucking Santa Monica Pier eating a damn In-N-Out burger.
We out here. We got coats on, not jackets. California, we wear a jacket. We don't zip it up, but we got a coat on today.
Hold on, wait. Come on. Hold on, wait. Before we get into this, I want to say something real quick. I had to get this off my chest because I didn't get to. So, our dear brother Trez here posted a small video clip saying snow in California. I didn't see the snow. I saw dust, and I wasn't impressed.
Oh, he
I wasn't impressed with
dust.
That's
dust.
Wasn't
real snow.
No,
You
that was
can't you
like
can't tell us that. We out here like, hey, it's
that was
snowing.
like, bro, that was like desert sand on the highway. That's nothing. Like that's nothing. Come on, man. Holler at me when them inches start piling up, bro. It's 50 degrees. They're finna shut the city down, son.
Yeah. And you know we ain't shit, so we still driving like it's like a regular sunny day because that's all we know. We driving like that out here? Nah, that's not a good combination.
Man, I can't talk too much stuff, man. Because when we out here dealing with 2 feet of snow and y'all out there living it up on the beach, I'll be jealous, bro.
Man, got jackets on in California, man. Well, on the East Coast, I say, it's been kind of weird lately. Primarily 60s, but we recently had a day where it's 80 degrees, man, 83 degrees out here in the middle of winter.
Damn.
We ain't had a winter, those of us on the East Coast. For the most
That's a
part.
good segue, Melvin. That's a good
It's
segue.
been 39 over here. You talking about some 80? What?
Yeah, bro.
Hey,
It's been
curious. I don't
40,
think you caught what Melvin
45.
said. Melvin just shouted the crew out. You know what I'm saying? It's funny because we doing this show and he mentioned the game. It's like the 60s out here. That's right. We right here, baby. Shout out to the 60s, bro.
Shout out to the 60s.
It's happening.
Already. Speaking of the 60s, finally got some justice, man. A little bit.
I saw that.
Nipsey Hussle's killer finally got them years on them, man. So
that's crazy. A 60 sentenced to 60 years. That's crazy.
You see that, right?
That's a little bit of psychological.
It was only right. The judge did it right.
Yeah, he hit him with the Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man.
Thinking about that.
I say the judge should let him go, but I'll leave it at that. I think we all know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, no. I think he definitely handled it appropriately. What goes after that, we'll see.
He probably ain't gonna last 60 years for real.
Nah,
or nothing close to that.
Not at all. So yeah, let's get this conversation started. We definitely want to talk. We talked about the new podcast, so make sure you guys hit that link in the chat. That's where the podcast will be moving over to. Right now, we got to wait about a day to start live streaming over there. So definitely go ahead and hit that link. We'll move everything over shortly. But as of right now, we're going to talk about, segue back into this game, culture, and history. And I'm going to hand this off to Maurice as far as we're motivated this discussion. And, go ahead and give us the intro and the build off of this. And while you do that, shout out to Planet Free Spirit for watching and supporting. Shout out to the bar Reloaded for also coming through, watching and supporting.
Oh man, hey, you know what's funny? Because when as soon as you said Planet Free, I didn't even in my head, like how your brain calculates stuff like super fast. I didn't even. It dawned on me that I thought you was about to say shout out to Planet Fitness, bro.
Yeah, you ain't shit. Yeah, ain't no shout out to the damn gym.
Hey man, before we get started, I'm completely sober, so nobody's saying I'm on anything.
I ain't even sure I believe that right now. So but go ahead.
Completely sober. But no, on a more serious note, what kind of brought on this this particular topic is the other day, we were kind of messaging back and forth in the chat, and Miss Erica, she had this very long question and statement mixed together, and I thought it would be best suited to respond to it basically over a phone call. because I felt like it would have been too much to respond to. But it's basically kind of shedding light on trying to get understanding in street organizations and why they exist, as a whole. I mean, it started off as like as African American thing or African American gangs, but you know, we had to, me and Brother Follow saying, we had to highlight the fact that African Americans are not the only ones that have gangs or street organizations. That is not something that's endemic to our ethnic group. There are street gangs all over the world. All different cultures have their own crews and things of that nature. It's just that here in America, of course, we're more familiar with ours because this is a reality of living. Most of us run into these particular organizations. But even then, there are other organizations that exist around us that you may be completely oblivious to because you're not of that culture. So you don't think much of it. So your perception and understanding of what a gang is only based on what you think you see. But that's what this conversation was about. That there's a lot more going on in the world than just maybe a blood and crip or a Panther disciple, a black disciple that you think you see. There's way more than you think. So that's kind of what this conversation is.
Gotcha. What's your take on, like, I guess you could say, in this country, the origins of, where gang culture begins, it starts at?
I mean, if I can be honest, with if you would ask me in my opinion, I would say with white folks. Um, that's not to say that gangs didn't exist before them, but I think as far as America goes, as far as us understanding how, what I'm saying, the mode and the model, I would say it started with them in some form of fashion. And then once you start having other people immigrate over into the country, they start bringing some of their own things with it too. So you still have crews and organizations that come from other countries. Just like like the Italian mafia. Um, we got Irish gangs and things of that nature. So we start to see that stuff coming over with Europeans. And there are many different reasons why different groups exist. But I would say the main one is basically a band of people getting together to probably protect themselves or show camaraderie amongst each other.
All right. Dre's, what's your perspective on that? What is the origin of, you could say, where gang culture originated, or who it originated with in America, in the States? Where would you place that?
That's a good question, man. And I don't know if I, really know the true answer to that. I'm an 80s baby, so you can imagine, the understanding that I have about gangs or whatever. And I mean, I go back into, the clubs. Like they used to have, clubs before it was called gangs or whatever. A lot of different ethnic groups had clubs, you know what I'm saying? And this is probably what, the 40s, 50s, right? Something like that. Maybe back as far as the 30s, and like white social organizations, and they had black ones, and so on and so forth. But I think it just comes down to like a pride thing, something that's like akin to patriotism, but not necessarily patriotism, but more like a city pride, or Like, we want the world to know that we the ambassadors of this city or this block, or, you know what I'm saying, this north side, south side, west side, east side, whatever, you know what I mean? And when you get a bunch of different organizations that are basically trying to be that, then they're competitors now. Now the light comes on. Oh, okay. You know, these are like competition, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, you got these, like, what starts as, you know, maybe not a violent, crazy like it is now, but you can see it kind of working its way up, you know what I'm saying, to eventual fighting, and, you know what I'm saying, you can't come on this block, this is our block, so on and so forth. We ain't gonna come to your block, you know, that kind of thing, that kind of mentality. And then fast forward to people trying to get money, trying to get bread, right? And so they get tapping into illegal, you know, ways to do it. And then all of these social groups, these clubs that are now gangs, are tapping into the same, you know, stuff. And they're competitors again, you know what I'm saying? Trying to move this heroin and stuff in the 60s and 70s. And, you know what I'm saying? Trying to move weed and coke in the 80s and 90s. And, you know, so on and so forth till now. Fast forward to now, fentanyl and all that. It's gangs that are trying to basically fill a role. You know what I'm saying? The bootleggers. Anytime something's illegal, you know, we can get that. You know, we take pride in that. You know what I'm saying? But it definitely got more violent over time, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know the true, you know, where it started, who said we're gonna be a street gang and have this mentality, versus like it just kind of developed over time, you know what I'm saying?
Right. I think Maurice brought up a valid point as far as, you know, the different groups that came over across the states, from Europe, bringing their own identity and family and culture, and, you know, bonding together and forming groups. But sure as I know you on the West Coast, there's an entire history of Mexican culture that also kind of seeps into what we call classify the origins of gang culture. What are you guys' thoughts about that?
You know, I'll even take it back to this. To be honest, if you, I would say this is just my opinion, but I'm basing this opinion off of what I understand about anthropology and how humans move around in human migrations. I would go so far as to say gangs probably have been around just as long or even longer than Homo sapiens have been around, because when you think about it, you start you start a family and you become the head of the family. You start moving around, and then, you know, the son does the same thing, and they start, you know, groups start splintering off. They're not necessarily gangs in that sense, but it's the classic human thing to split off and take care of your section, your particular people. So it's not only just like the physical migration, but it's also psychological, you know, in the sense of, man, we gotta make sure our group is taken care of. We gotta take care of our group. We have to hold on to our resources. You know, we have to do our own thing around here. And you start having that thing where it splits off, splits off, splits off. So it's not far fetched to see that maybe a group of guys in one neighborhood who are probably two streets over from another group of guys decide, hey, we're going to do this little thing of ours. And that group on the other side does the same thing. So it's not far fetched to see that at some point they may either bump heads or decide to join forces because maybe there's a larger threat or a bigger picture to be seen. So, I mean, you could also look at it like that.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Um, what are you guys' personal like experiences with gang culture? Not giving away too much, but just like, you know, personally experiencing it in your neighborhood, in your area. growing up, where did you guys see, as far as like the impact of the culture in your neighborhood?
Wow. I would say just real quick for me, just like Trey said, I'm an 80s baby too, so I kind of grew up in a hectic time. I grew up in the hood, so I grew up in a hectic time. So honestly, all I know is gangs. And honestly, I've been a gang. Well, not I've been, but I am a gang member. Been one for 20, 20 years, 20 plus years probably. Um, so when you say what's my interaction with it, I was born in it. It's what I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Being from the areas that we from, I was born in. I'm from LA. I was born in LA. So by the time I was born, there was already gangs. People was talking about, oh, I'm moving out the hood. Trying to get away from this, which created like the cycle of I'm moving away, and then the gangs follow out that way. You know what I'm saying? Because the ties is still there and everything, and then that's how the gangs basically done spread to everywhere now. But yeah, pretty much born in it. You got family that's on either side. You had the truces that happened, in the 90s. Then you had people that went against the truce, said fuck it, and then some people that still kept it. You got different sets, like, that Brother Maurice said, they click up because they see like a bigger picture. So they'll have like a union, or some kind of, alliance or whatever, loose alliance. All these kind of things happen. But it's pretty much, part of society by the time I'm a kid growing up in the 90s or whatever. Gang life is pretty much a norm. It's something that you learn how to avoid, or you draw into it, you get into it, start banging, or people, that do, and you just don't get down or whatever, because you see that you don't want to get down like that or whatever. And so now, fast forward to 2023, it's pretty much a norm, and pretty much, the average city in America, no matter the state, you pretty much have some gang activity, going on.
I mean, I'll even go so far as to say not even 2023, but I would just say, man, it's probably been like this for
Yeah.
For decades now. Not just now, because the biggest street organizations from that African Americans created, they all started in the very late 60s. You got the Bloods and the Crips in Los Angeles, and then you got in Chicago, you got the Gangster Disciples and the Black Disciples and the Vice Lords and things of that nature. These are all groups that kind of had their inception in the late 60s, but in the same breath, these same organizations that were birthed around that same time also kind of had a similar origin, and that was the Black Panthers. I think sometimes we kind of neglect that, how the decline of the Black Panthers kind of partially gave rise to these street organizations that we know today. And one thing I will say is I think it's kind of sad, and also I don't want to be like the conspiracy guy here, but it's mighty funny how from the federal government and the state and local governments, doing all they could to dismantle the Black Panthers and beat them down to the pulp, how that is pretty much almost defunct, or it not necessarily defunct, but the organization itself is pretty much a shell of its former self. It does not have the same notoriety that it once had. So I'll take the pulse out of it, because Black Panthers is still around. It's just not the same organization that it once was. But the fact that Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, and all the other street organizations they're still around and they're still thriving to a certain extent. But it's weird because, looking at the media, all they focus on is negativity. And for these organizations to be quote unquote so negative as it's portrayed, the fact that they're still around and groups like the Black Panthers didn't survive or survive such a very short-lived thing, it's kind of wild to me. That's where the conspiracy thing is to me, because it's almost as if you looked at it at a certain way, it's almost as if they don't mind us destroying or being destructive. But if we're standing up trying to do right and do good, we got to do something to them. I'm not, like, I don't want to be a conspiracy guy. I'm just saying, if you look at it in that respect, it kind of gives that vibe.
Speaking of media, and the influence, the negative influences of gang culture. What are some of the stereotypes that we often hear that aren't necessarily true? Because whether you've been involved in gangs or you've been around gangs in your culture, your neighborhood, what are some of the like false stigmas and stereotypes that are often preached that may not really have any validity to them?
Well, I guess the main one is that we just roam around looking for trouble and trying to, I guess, knock old ladies over for their purses or some dumb shit like that. Like that's not a thing. It's not what's going on. That's one. I guess that's the main one, is that we just roam around looking for trouble. That's not a thing. And then another one too. This is a big one, and I take this very personally. For some reason, if you're a gang member, you can only be a gang member, which is completely false. I'm still a human. I still can live a good life. I still can be a good person. I still have goals and aspirations more than just standing on a street corner all day doing nefarious activities all the time. Like, that's one thing that I take personally, because I put it to you like this. For me personally, at this point, I'm 36 years old. I'm, of course, I'm gainfully employed. I got a family, and I stay out of trouble. But unfortunately, I put myself in certain social circles. I'm networking. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, and maybe somebody from a different social circle finds out that I'm a gang member. Then they start looking at me funny. It's like, why the sudden change of heart? This whole entire time you've been digging my vibe, you've been networking with me, we've been doing this, we've been getting money, we've been doing whatever. But all of a sudden, your attitude changes because you have this stigma, this stereotype that I'm just some dumb gang member walking around here. And that's not how this works. I'm the same person you grew to know and love or grew to do business with. I just happen to be a member. Like, I can do two things at once. I can walk and chew bubble gum. I'm just not mindless walking around and looking for trouble or doing XYZ crime. It don't work like that. So that's two things for me. Like big stereotypes. There's way more, but those are just two big things that jump out of me.
Right. Triz, you got any stereotypes or things that people constantly say about gangs that may not necessarily be true?
I mean, the whole like Dusty thing, which we know it's a lot of like Dusty, gangbangers and stuff that they might not even be like really respected in the set like that for real. But but what I will say though, because it is, especially back in the 90s, it used to be like a lot of Dusty cats or whatever. and cats was like getting known for being dusty and shit. You know what I'm saying? But what I want to say is like there's a lot of gang members that they got like 800 credit score, you know what I'm saying? Like they through the roof with it. They handling business, you know, they're doing a lot of business that a lot of, you know, square type people are afraid to do, or, you know, they could do it, but they just don't have the go get it to go ahead and do it. And a lot of gang members or ex-gang members or what have you, they have skills like everybody else, right? But they might have like a little more, you know, go get it. Not to say everybody, but just something that I've witnessed. Like there's a lot of them that they're not in the street. They're not, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, let's go to the block and, you know what I'm saying, and post up and shit and, you know, look broke or whatever and, you know, attract that kind of energy. No, you know, a lot of these dudes is like, I'm fly. You feel me? Like, not only am I fly, but I'm like, mainstream fly. I'm not out here just like I look like a gangbanger. I'm out here. I'm just looking like the average, you know, fashionable young man. You know what I'm saying? But I'm out here doing my thing, and you would never know or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of them that are really about, you know, they male. You know what I'm saying? And taking care of business. You know, far more than a lot of, you know, regular square people are. You know, in a lot of cases. You know. They're not just about being broke and, you know, standing in front of the liquor store like back in the day, you know, the image that we used to have or that we used to see or do ourselves, you know what I'm saying? Back in the day, it's not like that. You know, it's a lot of gangbangers that's like living in nice neighborhoods. They got their family set up, you know what I'm saying? They call it big gates, you know what I'm saying? Where they got gated community living. And it's nothing to be ashamed of, you know, because they know what they're out here for, you know, striving for capital, you know, so on and so forth. You know how the game go. So there is a misconception there. In some cases, it is still a lot of dusty bum, you know, type thinking, you know, and type people, but there's some that definitely have a head on their shoulders.
Right. Yeah, I definitely
Yeah,
feel
that's
you on
why I
that.
was gonna say, like, think about it. You got gang members in the NBA, you got gang members in the NFL. You know, you got gang members that are leading normal lives and being part of society. So it's not just it's not just a bunch of reckless youth or people just running around, just not doing anything. You know, so I'm saying you can do multiple things at once. Like the big stereotype that everybody is a gang member, you know, it's just a bunch of guys hanging out, standing on the corner, just doing nothing. And it's like, it's more to life than that. And we have dreams, we have aspirations too. Nobody wants to be in that position for their entire life. You know, you wanna also get off that. You also want to make a better life for your family too. So I just want to throw that out there.
Right. Um, so since we're
Hold
talking
on,
about the
whoa. Before we move forward, man, I
yeah,
know you pretty much like the host and you do the narration and all that, but so you forgot to add your personal experience with games if you've ever had any.
yeah, so me myself, I didn't have like direct experience with being involved in the gang. That was something that my pops kind of was frowned upon, being that he was kind of already like out there, kind of being I would say like a career criminal. So he already knew what to expect with that type of culture. So he made sure that he threatened, you know, that aspect out of me before I can get involved into it. But you know, I do have siblings that are involved in it, and you know, I was always around it. I would say because I was born in the '80s as well, um, but really like in the '90s, you know, being here where it's kind of very country, you know, didn't really get to being like a city until more recently, but when the population increases. But being here, there wasn't really like a heavy gang presence until I would say maybe the 2000s. The more so the gang presence was local goons, that kind of ran a particular neighborhood, a particular block, and they just stayed to themselves unless somebody stepped on their territory. But it was always action, but it wasn't like nobody was repping colors. It was just people was repping territory. You from these apartments here, so you know that anybody from out of town that comes through, they obviously looking for trouble. And so, the local goons took care of that the way they felt like they needed to, whether they was checking on them or sending them back out or, whatever. But I would say, the more modern understanding of gang culture here didn't really come until, I think if I could put a time marker on it, is when rappers started being more boastful about representing colors. We really didn't get that here until Lil Wayne started representing his colors. But most of the guys that were from here were from other states, whether it was New York or other states that went outside of the the DMV, Carolina areas. And that's where we got our experience with primarily Bloods. It's a primarily power dominant area here. So they didn't really have that back in the 90s, and I doubt they had it before then because there was no evidence of it. It didn't exist. But I never really respected them because the local goons had already had all the respect. They were not to be fucked with. They didn't care about colors. It was about respect in their territory, and a lot of times their territory was that way because that's where their moms lived, or that's where their grandmoms lived. So it was a family thing. It wasn't really about representing colors or representing the culture. It was like, this is my people, it's my family. So you come here, you better have the right intentions. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, by the time the 2000s came, a lot of the cats that were banging, Pyru, they were doing that from, a modern sense, not like they've been at it. So they didn't really get a lot of respect here. They're here still, but, originally they didn't get a lot of respect or fear because the local goons had already took care of everything. But that's my experience. It's a very limited experience because, I don't live in like a major city. So it's very rural here. But yeah, that's my experience. You guys have any thoughts or opinions about that?
Well, no, I mean, like that's just a classic example of how information and people and gangs migrate, for whatever reason it may be.
Right.
Because us on the opposite side, me being in St. Louis, I would say, I guess somewhere around the very, very late 80s, early 90s, we started getting those influx of members, during the height of the crack era, because those guys from, LA, Chicago was moving around a lot,
Mm-hmm.
taking their culture elsewhere. I know here we got pretty much influenced by the LA for the most part. A lot of Chicago guys moved around to like Memphis and things of that nature. East St. Louis, further south on the East Coast a little bit. So that just goes to show you at least that part. And basically, so you saying you feel like you guys didn't get any of that type of activity until the 2000s. Yeah.
That's when it was more
early
like
to mid 2000s.
I would say early 2000s. That's where it became more prevalent. I think the only time they represented colors was in prison. Because you didn't really hear about Pirate Nation or anything like that unless you was in prison. Um, but it became more bold and more, you would see the red rags or whatever attire that they wore in the early 2000s. That's where it really was like, oh, okay, so this is something different. But definitely prior to that, it was just local goons, just
Yeah,
local
yeah,
people.
yeah. Yeah, like so basically, yeah, before we start seeing people identify with bandanas of that nature, you already had street crews out there.
Yeah,
That were already, saying, in certain neighborhoods in certain areas. Even in the areas where they came from. Like I know Chicago they already had groups. Los Angeles already had groups,
yeah,
before they started identifying with rags or going
exactly.
under one umbrella. And, there were all these loose neighborhoods, and not to sound fanatical about it, but I know a lot of black street organizations or a lot of black groups were started to defend ourselves and our neighborhoods from white people and crooked police officers who were coming and terrorizing
Absolutely.
us because let's be real, back in the 60s, 50s, and any time before that, before the culture kind of shifted, white people were very, very offensive against African Americans. And they didn't want us in certain areas, and they would even come to our areas and terrorize us just because they could. So we started to have these groups to band together to say no more. We're not going for this shit anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah, that
And once they, I feel like once white people understood that they couldn't just come in and push on us like that anymore, I think what ends up happening is now we kind of get to a point where we start implode. We kind of start imploding on each other, and we start having our own little rifts and beefs in between. Within within the neighborhood. And I think that's kind of where a lot of these modern conflicts start, and we start going a little wrong in certain areas. But go ahead with your point, y'all.
Yeah, I think you bring up a valid point because there's definitely a lot of crooked police here. I know there's a lot of crooked police everywhere, but here, like, they definitely took advantage of that. But once, like, the local governments took their stance, like, it got to a point, even in my city, where police were even afraid to come to the hood. Like, they didn't even want to come for a lot of times. So if you had a legit issue and you needed the local authorities, they would hesitate. Take them 30 minutes to an hour to come, whereas in other neighborhoods they're there so quickly. So yeah, a lot of times they wouldn't even patrol the area. They just avoided it because they knew it was gonna be friction. But yeah, it's definitely like protection of your home, especially with a lot of the apartments and establishments here where yeah, it is like home. So people protect it and they're willing to protect it at any cost, no matter, who it is. And so yeah, for quite a while they in my hometown, where I currently reside, they got so afraid to even come. If you called them, they didn't even want to come. So they avoided that. Once the 2000s came, it's like okay, they had different patrol divisions and different little clubs inside the force where they were specifically targeting certain neighborhoods, and they were a little bit more bold at that point because they understood who they were dealing with once they saw the colors. But prior to that, they had no clue.
Yeah, I always find it interesting, when I start digging and I start researching, particular gangs, and I do see that regardless of what area or what region of the country, as far as African Americans go, our particular groups, they all had a similar reason for starting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of because white folks were terrorizing us, whether it be just mundane citizens or police officers
Yeah.
coming in and bothering us. They have a similar origin. Like, all right, we gotta get this together. We gotta cut this out. We gotta stop this from happening.
Right.
And honestly, I kind of feel like we lost our way a little bit as far as that goes. But I mean, we can get into that later. Because I mean, this conversation is so dynamic and so layered. I mean, we can spend days trying to decipher and get into all the ins and outs and understandings, the origins of certain organizations and what the shell of the former self they are now.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I understand is like no matter the organization, before it became cool, before it became popular, or the thing to do, or the thing to associate with, a lot of these organizations started out as families, and they were just trying to protect themselves or their families, or certain key people around them. And it's like that's where the foundation begins. What it grows up to be can be something completely different. But the foundation becomes let's protect each other. So I think when you start getting into the more popular scene, like for us it's the 2000s, because that's where it became clearly obvious that okay, not only was this Crip and Blood thing something that was real but only existed on the West Coast, now it's here, and so now it's like it's here to stay, it's here in numbers, but the motive ain't the same. The motive ain't let's protect our neighborhoods from opposition or protect our neighborhoods from unruly police, or in some cases let's protect our neighborhoods from drugs. It became this is the cool thing to do. Me and my boys is this. So that's why I said they didn't get a lot of respect early on, because like that wasn't originally something that was here. So it wasn't going to get no respect. It was definitely going to get pushback. But the police loved it because they knew how to identify it. It made it easier for them. And, when they did a lot of their sting operations and everything, those guys took all the biggest hits. And, the guys who used to be the local goons of the local areas, once their apartment buildings or their projects were, cleaned up, they either moved somewhere else or, they got, locked up or whatever, being a part of the system. But, the blood thing is still here. So still people associating with it. And it's big in numbers, and it's even bigger in prisons. It's just, you would never know.
Yeah. I kind of want to talk about um something a little bit. Basically, I know, of course, we're African American.
Right.
We're very interested in our own culture, which is understandable. But I think I like to talk about something that other people don't really talk about as much. Outside of African Americans, there are other ethnic groups and cultures that have street organizations,
Absolutely.
and a bunch that have been around even longer than what we can understand.
Hmm.
You know, usually when you think about a gang, I'm probably sure that most of the time what comes to your mind is you thinking about maybe a Crip or Blood or Gangsta Disciple, but you know, Japanese have Yakuza, Italians have the Sicilian Mafia, basically. There are Irish gangs out, um, and there's many more. So it's just not something that's endemic to African Americans. let's not act like Mexican cartels don't exist. And different groups that fall under cartel rules. So it's one of those things where you gotta understand that like I said earlier, this is more of the human behavior than just one particular group behavior. People band together and create these organizations, and sometimes they could have positive meanings or they could be started for the right thing, but eventually sometimes things go awry. And I know for the most part, the biggest effect or the biggest factor in things going awry is leadership. And what I mean by that is you could have terrible leadership or your leadership could be in jeopardy by, maybe the federal and local governments, maybe they're dismantling your organization and coming after your leaders. So what happens is you end up with power struggles and that sort of stuff starts to go off to the side. And you start having groups that start splintering off or become something that it wasn't meant because the leadership has been attacked. And like this seems like to be a common thing. And the crazy thing about it is that does not only happen with gangs. I mean, think about it. If you let's be honest, like this happened with the civil rights era, the civil rights movement. The leaders start falling off, whether they were getting assassinated or attacked or incarcerated. These different, these different groups started splintering up, and then you start seeing faults in the particular groups because the leadership is being dismantled. So I think this is one of the more major issues is the leadership of the groups. Same thing happened with Black Panthers. They start taking out the leadership. Everything, you cut off the head. The body's gonna follow. What you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, I think once the leadership shows that it's capable of being taken out and there isn't a structure that falls in place, then yeah, I think it becomes extremely easy to tear those.
Keyword structure.
Yeah, it becomes very easy to take those things down.
Yeah.
I mean, not hypothetically, if you're in the army and your captain gets taken down, there's a structure set in place to allow the next person to come in the lead, and everyone else under them understands their objective. Same thing with a team. If you're a basketball team and your captain gets hurt, there's a structure set up to where the rest of that team knows how to play. They know their plays and know how to do, and they learn to function without that captain. Same with the football team, who's maybe their star is hurt, but they know their objective. They know how to move, even though the leaders are done and gone or suspended or hurt or whatever.
But
they know how to.
Even though in all of those instances you just used, correct, understandable, but maybe the machine doesn't work as well without that main ingredient or that big piece.
Yeah,
even though
I get that.
Even though there's a system in place, but it may not run as smooth as it would. Because guess what? Let's just say you're using the example you was using. A team loses its star player. Who's gonna step up? Everybody wants to step up, but everybody can't be a leader.
Nope. But it takes a certain person. It takes a certain person who's going to be like, look, I'll lead the team. But they have to have already gained the respect of the team for that to be
Yeah,
there,
and
that has
even
to
in
be
that
that
same
structure.
breath, even in that same breath, maybe the team tries to go on without their leader, but maybe an opposing team just has maybe an opposing team is just firing on all cylinders, and maybe the team just can't get it together.
Yeah, it
You
happens.
know, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, it
you know,
happens.
an attack on the leadership, albeit whatever reason, um, I think it's the main thing we start seeing games in negative light, and focus starts to get lost of what was the purpose and what they existed for in the first place.
Yeah, that's
And
fact.
then, I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. There are some groups and some organizations that are just out there for nefarious reasons. They meant to cause trouble. Like, I won't sit up here and act like everybody had good intentions. Some people were just pure anarchy. It is what it is. But, but either way, leadership plays a role. Man.
Right. Good point. Yep. Um. So, we were gonna talk about the benefits of gang culture. I think a lot of times people look at gang culture and there's always these stigmas and stereotypes, but from your perspective, from you guys' perspective, what are some of the benefits? You know, not necessarily to advertise or promote, but just what are some of the things that you benefited from or that you appreciated while being around or involved in said gang cultures that had you not been around or influenced or involved, you would have never experienced?
Well, I would say this, just like you were talking about earlier about stereotypes, I guess is a stereotype that like it's just 100% chaos and
Right.
it's just all trouble. That's not true. In many ways, being a part of a street organization is it loosely related to like being in a fraternity, you know, things of that nature. You get that camaraderie. Um, you get that social interaction of being around your peers. In some cases when it's not being when it's what I'm saying, not to promote anything, but like when it's not what am I trying to say? Basically you get that protection of the crew. You know,
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about some guy walking up there you trying to quote unquote take your lunch with you because you got the backing of your crew.
Gotcha.
Um yeah, so sometimes you avoid certain situations like that. Not to say it doesn't happen because it definitely does. But
Right,
like
right.
I said,
Right.
we talking about some positive things that comes out of that. Not only do you get that camaraderie with your bros, um, you build that chemistry. You guys do a lot of things together. You become a family outside of your biological family. So and then sometimes you gotta think some people have trouble with their biological family, so they don't have nobody to turn to but the crew. So for many people, that is their family, all they have. Sometimes you're going through hard times. It might be somebody in your crew that can give you a place to stay. Make sure you eat. Help you get on your feet. So it's
Yeah.
not all negative. It's not 100% negative. There are good things about it. I don't know if Trez want to add a little bit onto that.
Yeah, I was going to ask him, Trez, you know some of the benefits or just some of the things that, somebody on the outside that may not have had the influence, had access, because there are places, believe it or not, that don't get that type of activity. I doubt in places like Nebraska and Iowa, people have access to, things like that. Not saying that it's not possible, but
No,
Gotta stop you right
some
there.
do,
I got
some
before
do,
you go. Gotta stop you right there, man.
some
Nebraska
do.
and Iowa,
But
gang out, bro.
all these
It's
places, man, they have this experience,
it
happening. But
ganged out, bro. I'm
what I
saying
would
it's
add on to it, I would just say, all these experiences, they human experiences, and you can get all of these rites of passage and all these fulfillments, you know what I'm saying, social fulfillment, without necessarily being in the gang. But it just so happens that a lot of people are have and do find those things through being in the gang. But you don't have to, you know. I want that to be kind of clear. You don't necessarily have to partake in that in order to experience those things. That's kind of first and foremost. The ones that gang banged, and the ones in the past and the ones that still do now, I respect those people on an individual level just like I would anybody else, right? And I love a lot of them, you know what I mean? But I wouldn't tell anybody to pursue that as a goal. You know what I'm saying? That's not it's not necessary for your career. And I understand there's people that's born into that, and that's something that's different and they can choose to get out, later or whatever. But for people that's like, I got a choice or whatever, nah, I wouldn't tell anybody to go ahead and do that. You know what I mean? Especially because of what it's devolved to now, you know what I'm saying, compared to what it used to be, when it was more righteous, we'll say, right? Um, gangs have had their moments. Gangs have had their moments, like the church, you know what I'm saying, where they've done some great things and gave back and stuff. Not to put them on the same, level as the church, but you know what I'm saying. They've had their feel good moments or whatever. But nah, overall, you don't need that.
Yeah, I agree with Triz. I mean, kind of like at this point, what I'm saying, in all my experiences I've had since I was a kid, doing this since the 90s, I feel like in the age of the internet and social media and things going now, I would strongly, strongly be against it. I don't think I would advocate for somebody to get within that lifestyle, especially with a lot of at this point, it seems like a lot of disorganization and the unity just doesn't seem to be the main focus anymore. And, the whole vibe's kind of just weird, at this point, in 2023 with, saying the internet and all the stuff that's going on around it. But I do want to like get a perspective from Triz. Like, I don't want to speak for you, but if I'm not mistaken, you are from, Los Angeles, correct? But you didn't partake in that lifestyle. So, like, for people listening, there's another stereotype that we kind of, I think some outsiders might harp on. It's like, oh, if you're from LA, you're definitely down with a gang per se. So, like, how does,
Yeah.
how does it work? Is everybody down?
Nah. You know how many people we got in California, man, and in Los Angeles and LA metro area. There's a lot of us that have family or friends or whatever, or, that get down, that's active, you know what I mean, that has a set, that's reputable, that knows them. But no, we don't all bang. And this is California, it's LA. We all have alternative, you know what I'm saying, lifestyles to gang banging, you know what I'm saying, out here. So no, not everybody gang bangs. Yes, it is prevalent. We might know people, or if we look hard enough, right, we could put two and two together on a few people that we know and say, oh yeah, look, I know somebody gang bang or whatever. But No, we don't all gangbang. I mean, that's not what we should be promoting. You know what I mean? That's not the lifestyle to promote. Is
Right,
gangbanging.
right. For sure, for sure. You know, I just reason I wanted to ask that because you know what I'm saying I just want to make some people aware. You know, just understand something. Even though like me and his brother come from two different walks of life. Personally, I decided to partake in. He didn't. You know, but you know, it's not something that's needed. Just like you said, we don't have to do it. You know, it's just two different mind states and two different individuals who decided to make their own decision. And
Right.
at the end of the day, we're both here, we're both free, we're both, you know what I'm saying, gainfully employed or doing whatever we do. We both raising families, even though we
Yep.
both chose different paths. So, you know what I'm saying?
Facts. Hey, you know what
You
I
know,
thought about just now? Like all of us, you know, well, not all of us, but us families that have this familiar like poverty experience or whatever, we all had like the boys in the hood, you know what I'm saying, moment, you know what I'm saying, the Furious Styles
facts,
pops, you know, we've all had that moment, right? Where it's like you either gonna choose to like be down with the streets or whatever, or you're gonna be like, nah, I ain't with that. I was like, nah, I ain't with that. You know what I'm saying? Moms was right there. She was like, nah, you don't want to get down with the set. You know what I'm saying? I was like, nah, yeah, he gonna play ball. He gonna do his thing. Okay, you know, we'll protect him or whatever. Let him do his thing, whatever. We're not gonna put him on. So that was my story, you know. But then others might have said, you know what, I'm gonna get down with the set, moms. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but yeah, we've grown since then, right? And whether you banged or not, you've had to get with the times and grow up and learn, you know what I'm saying, and get with the program so you can stay afloat. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. I heard brother Nip, you know what I'm saying, rest in peace to the home. He said something profound. I believe it was on a Vlad TV interview. And you know, Vlad asked him a question like, so why did you get down and how do you treat a situation where somebody else is getting down? And basically, in a nutshell, I'm paraphrasing, he was just basically saying, look, hey bro, you either get with it or you just get out the way. It's just that simple. You know what I'm saying? You got a decision to make. Either you're gonna do it or you're not. And that's just what it is. Some people decide to do it, some people don't. And either way, you know, long as you're a solid stand-up individual, you know what I'm saying, you'll be fine, regardless. Regardless. You'll be just fine. That's why I was doing a comparison between me and the brother because he decided to not do it. He's fine. He grew up in that environment. I grew up in the same environment, but I did, you know what I'm saying? But hey, I made it out to talk about it. Then you got another stereotype where a bunch of gang members are just a bunch of guys walking around, you know what I'm saying? Guys with no father figures in their life. Now, my father was very active. Never missed a day. My father been there since day one. So, how about you, Tris? How was your relationship with your father?
I'm one of them cases where we didn't have no relationship like that. You know, my pops, he was from Inglewood. He was a Piru. You know, my mom, she liked him like that, you know what I'm saying? So but they fell out, man, like before I could even be old enough to remember stuff or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Um, so nah, I don't got no relationship with my pops.
No, I said that to say this. Think about this. Brother Tris didn't bang, didn't have a relationship with his pops. So my man's is free, has a family doing his thing. Me, on the other hand, I decided to get that pops in my life. I'm still free, able to do my thing. So you see, there are different dynamics in in these scenarios. So you can't just look at it as one size fits all.
Facts.
That's the parallel that I'm drawing here because I need people to understand these things. You can't just look at somebody and be like, pretty much give them that Eminem treatment from Amen. Oh, Clarence had good parents. Clarence parents had a real good marriage. You know, that type of thing. You know, you can't look at everybody and be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, you know, people still have their own different experiences, and people do what they do at the end of the day. So I was just drawing those two parallels just to understand, like, hey, we grew up in this poverty system, and you know, you either become a product of your environment, or you say, hey, man, I kind of don't want to get down with that, so I want to kind of walk over here and stray away from the situation. And there's a big misconception that all gang members or people that's in the life end up dead or in jail. Some people make it out. Don't get me wrong, there are a bunch of people that don't. Some of us make it out. So that just goes to show you that every single thing about this life is not just all terrible and bad. Like, this ain't no movie. I don't know. I think people look at it from like a Hollywood perspective, and it's not really that. You know, everybody got their own experiences and things that they go through.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Just a interesting dynamic.
Yeah, crazy parallels, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep, yep. Yeah, so yeah, I think on my end, you know, like, yeah, my pops in my life passed, I wanna say so about 5 or 6. But you know, around that time, and then even as I got a little older, when I did go back to go see him, you know, like I said, he put that fear in me, but he was like, yeah, you know, he said some choice words, so I won't repeat, but basically just threatened me to not get involved in that type of lifestyle. And even though he wasn't around to kind of keep that in check, I also understood that he was also involved in some shit that I didn't want to get involved in. And so that kind of made me focus on, you know, school and, you know, just trying to be a better person than he was. But yeah, I didn't get involved into that. I think had we had that type of culture here, it might have been easy to get involved into it. But like I said, that's something that didn't really exist until the 2000s. By that time, I'm already in high school, you know, so it's kind of late. The best time to get involved into something like that is especially when you're young. So
I mean, there's a few late bloomers out there. Some people don't get involved until about high school. Some people like that.
right.
But most of the time, you know what I'm saying, you see these things coming up with young kids. And, you know, either you develop this mindset of, I want to be a part of that, or you're like, you know what, I've seen enough and I don't want to be a part of that. I can parallel that with my disdain for drugs. I seen enough drugs and effects on what they do to people when I was a kid. I was like, no, I don't want no parts of that. No, none of it. To this day, I haven't done it, haven't tried it, you know. So,
Right.
oh, I'm sorry, outside of an edible, but other than that, no, I'm not doing anything. I'm not experimenting with nothing. Don't want to. Don't care to. You know. So, and then, but on the other hand, when I was young, the same age, I didn't see the negative effects of gangbanging. I thought it was cool. It looked good. I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's a factor. You know, the look, the quality of being in life. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially, you know, growing up as an 80s baby and in the 90s, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you coming from poverty and you see people pulling up and things that's like you shouldn't be able to, you know what I'm saying, buy that. But no, yes, I got that. Come on, come with me for a ride. I used to love going for a ride with uncles and you know what I'm saying, cousins and friends, you know, and all of that big homies and stuff. They come like the story of the big homie pulling up, man, and that ride, like it's real, man. Like, wow, I never touched real wood, just yes, real wood grain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that
like,
Crippen was attractive to me. Yeah,
very,
that looked
very
good.
attractive, man. Like, you know, people had
You see,
Camaros and Corvettes and all this, and it was like,
yeah,
Yep,
you
wow,
see
you
the
yep.
know,
youths pulling
like
up in the nice cars with the money. They had their hair all jerry curled out.
yeah,
Some
people
of
had
them,
Benzes and
they had on the
stuff.
fly clothes. You know what I'm saying? The blue rags and the chucks
Yeah,
and
people start riding in the back seat. They got the homie driving, they in the back, like you know, with their lady friend and
the
stuff. Like,
khaki.
what is y'all
Yeah,
doing out here, man? Like,
and you
Right,
see,
right.
and not to mention when they all get together and you see how they move as a unit, and they were moving good. You know what I'm saying? It was all good. It was all great. You know, you would see them getting ready to go out to the clubs together. You would see them walking around the neighborhood together, chilling or riding in their car, just like you said. Like you wanted to be a part of it. Some of us, anyway.
Yep. Hey, welcome to the panel, Council. You know, we're just kind of in the thick of the conversation. Basically talking about gang culture and history, primarily here in America, but it can encompass other locations on the planet. I think we started this thing off as far as like just with the intro on, um, you know, gang culture in America, where its origins, where do we think its origins are, and maybe how it got started. What's your take on that?
Well, yeah. What's up, man? Peace, everybody. What's up, Mel? What's up, Haru? I think
What's
Tristan in
going
there
on,
too.
bro?
What's happening, man?
What's going on, man?
So,
Yeah, everything's cool, man. Yeah, gang culture was interesting for me. I mean, growing up in Chicago, we took gang culture real serious. So I think it was kind of unique for us in Chicago because it was like a community type thing. It wasn't really a gang. You know, that didn't really develop to kind of later on, but initially it was kind of a community activism type thing. It kept a lot of structure and order in the neighborhoods actually, and it was just comprised of everybody was friends, you know, cousins, friends. They was all part of these organizations, and it was kind of like a lot of harmony together too. It really wasn't as bad initially. And then over a period of time, it just became real, you know, real volatile. You know, really started becoming volatile around about 83 in Chicago, and then around 85 through 88, it really got bad because crack, dope game kind of shifted to crack, and that's when went from cocaine to crack, and that was, man, gang culture took like a 180. And it's been what it's been like it is now since then for us in Chicago. I mean, that's initially what I can say.
got you. Yeah, that word structure came up earlier tonight.
I
We were
was
talking
I
about.
was just about to say that. He said
Yeah. Go
he
ahead.
said that word again. That's a valuable word here. Structure, which goes back to leadership and how we were saying how, you know, once you start messing with the leadership, you know, things start to splinter off and you know, things become shells of their former selves and stuff starts going haywire. That word structure, it means a lot. It means a lot.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. I think we even got into like some of the stigmas and stereotypes that, you know, when people talk about gang culture, like Media talks about gang culture, how they, always push these things, but they may not necessarily be true, or the people involved in it may not necessarily identify with those things.
Or
Being from
grossly over exaggerated too.
yeah. Being from Chicago, Kansu, what are some of those things? Whether you've been aware of or influenced by or directly involved in, what are some of
Well,
those stereotypes?
well, in Chicago in my era, you had no choice but to be directly involved. I mean, when I grew up on the west side of Chicago, you had no option. You just had to figure out what side you wanted to be on,
Hmm.
what family you wanted to be brought into. I mean, historically, my family was, they were gangster disciples. But I went to a high school that was primarily vice lords. And I had an affinity for the culture because I grew up in Al Islam. I was a 5%. And the vice lords, we had to take Shahada. We had to do our El Fatiha. So after Al Fatiha, every Friday, 1 p.m., we just had Juma. We was gang in the game having Juma at 1:30 every Friday. So it was a kind of quasi spiritual thing. And the stigma, with Chicago is highly segregated. So we had equivalents. We had the Irish militia, we had the Italian mafia, we had Gentile and the Chinese, the Yazuka Japanese, the Russian mob, Czechoslovakian mob, all in the city. The Greek mob, the Greeks mostly dealt with the Italians. So it was a lot of structure. Our gangs even operated kind of like an organized mob. There are rules and regulations. And so, yeah, some of the stigmas were true. I mean, gangs were very, very physical, very violent. However, it was within a network of their own. It wasn't like the random, not justifying it, but it wasn't the random things that are hurting people out here now.
Right.
But it was at a higher rate back then than now. Because if you didn't follow rules and regulations, you were dealt with in various ways. And it was a means of checks and balances, But then in the same breath, I know we couldn't. If you had to give your high school program, like your periods in your high school schedule, you had to give that to the chief. And if you wasn't in school when you were supposed to be, then the region will holler at you. And you don't want that. That's 10 to the head, no cover up. That's 5 minutes. They're going to light the match and they're going to light you up for 5 minutes until the match burn out. I mean, if you didn't go to school, I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, I'm in a gang, but if I don't go to school, if I don't, you could, like vice lords, we couldn't get C's. We had to get A's and B's.
Hey, that's real talk, man.
Yeah, you couldn't do that. Your pants had to be neatly pressed, no dirty shoelaces. Your clothing, you couldn't wear shirts tucked out. They had to be tucked in with a proper belt. Like, it was just certain things.
You couldn't be dusty.
No, sir. You can dealt with.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
You couldn't be dumb or dusty.
No, sir.
Yeah, can't be dumb or dusty. And that's real, man. Like, I remember we was ditching class and we'd be at the park or something, and if some of the guys from the set or whatever knew the kids that was there, like, hey, what are y'all doing? Go get back in school right now. You know what I'm saying? Get up out of here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then I don't want to stop the brother from building, but also
that's all good.
No, I also wanted to touch on something too. I know them brothers from Chicago, they real big on their literature, and they make sure you got to know the rules of what's going on. You just not allowed to just be out there recklessly terrorizing stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you got to know your literature.
Yes, man.
Of whatever organization you're a part of.
All day, bro. I mean, as a vice lord, we had to learn the Quran, and we had to speak Luqta Arabiya. We had to speak Arabic fluently. And we had to recite Salatul Fatiha without looking in the Quran. We had to do the Adhan, bar for bar. Look to the east. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying earlier. I was speaking to that earlier, like, people get things misconstrued by some of the things that they see now, but these things wasn't always like that. That reckless gang banging, some of that stuff you see nowadays, this is what happens when you start to lose structure and leadership gets attacked because there used to be rules to the game. Any banging, I don't care if you Crip Blood, Vice Lord, GD, whatever. It never ever in history has ever been about terrorizing your own community or knocking over old ladies or doing stuff like that. Because actually, you get violated for those type of actions. Or at least you are supposed to. Nowadays, it's a little more sketchy. But I know back in the days, it's a lot more structure to it, and those things like that, you didn't do that. You always respected your elders on the game, regardless of where you were from. You respected the elders. You wasn't harming kids. You wasn't out here recklessly doing like that.
Yeah, I was going to speak about that. I remember where, excuse me, I remember where there was a time where the local goons or gangs weren't necessarily going at children and women. They weren't necessarily pulling up and shooting up churches or shooting up funeral homes or, y'all at the gravesite and they shooting it up. I remember a time where that wasn't something that they did. That out of respect for the deceased or out of respect for the women and children. But now it's a little bit more reckless. Why do you think that is? Do you think that's because there's no structure, no more respect?
I mean that's one of that's one of them. One that I would say that's top three causes is no structure and no leadership. Because guess what? What happens when you get a bunch of kids that are initiated into an organization, and the leader gets taken down? Now these kids are wrecking this organization. They don't have no structure. They didn't have time to learn or understand from the older guys what it meant to be a part of that organization. So now you got them doing whatever. That's one thing. That's one thing. And then two, all three of us, me, Triz, and Constantly said something powerful. The 80s. I don't know, man. That crack, man. That crack kind of it messed a lot of shit up. It really did.
Mhm.
I feel like it made everybody turn on each other because the money started flowing and then the drugs was going, and then not to mention, let's be real. Back in them days, a lot of people was doing it. So, you got a lot of people not thinking in their right mind too. So you start to see a lot of this infighting. Once that money start flowing around and people start fucking with these drugs, you start to see a lot of infighting. So I'm pretty sure that led to the demise and some of the issues we got going on today. You know what I'm saying? That coupled with, lack of leadership and just no structure. So, it's a lot of reckless activities going on that wouldn't have went well any other time.
Yeah, the one thing about the Midwest, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, Kansas City, Ohio, Detroit, or Michigan rather, Canada. We was basically sisters and brothers. It's a real heavy cast in St. Louis, where her roots on. Real connected in Chicago. And people from St. Louis, Chicago, are really connected in Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
It was a man named White Boy Red in Detroit. He was heavy all through the Midwest because he had a direct connection from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our system was like, it was big and it was little because everybody knew everybody, and it was easy to be getting in touch with. So you had to have some decorum. about yourself. And when the leaders were compromised, and they started getting taken out, they pretty much just started giving up us. They gave us up. It was kind of like the leaders, the people that was in place to give us structure, tore the structure down. Because they started catching charges, and they wanted to beat the charges. So they started ratting. And when they started ratting, the law even applied to the heads. They got to go. And so mob action started happening. Cats end up in the car in the middle of the street, in the alley. People come up missing. Nobody knows who did it. One gang, a rat on the other gang on purpose. The biggest gang in Chicago was the Chicago police. That was our biggest gang. And they would purposely plant stuff on you and then tell you to tell them, or you're going to catch this 20 years. So you tell them, and then they go and tell everybody you told. So when you get out, you got a problem. And so it was like really, really cutthroat. And that's where I would tell the young cats that was, following me in that type of life, that you think the money is good, but it's what you don't see that'll catch up with you. It's those relationships that you don't know nothing about that'll catch you blindsided. And these young cats didn't heed the warning of us OGs. They didn't hear it. I'm like, man, I'm telling you, your right-hand man is going to do you in. I'm telling you, that dude sitting on that bus stop, man, he might be wearing a wire. I'm like, you trying to push that work, and that one last dude instead of taking your ass home, you stayed outside just a little bit longer, sir. That last dude, he just caught yourself 15 years. Like it's a game that very few are good at it. That shit was deep, man.
Yeah. Hey, what you guys think about the hybrid gangs now? Where you got two friends, they both in different cliques, but the cliques be beefing, but because they friends, it don't matter. But let somebody from their own gang take out their friend who's in a different clique,
question.
and they take out their own clique. It's weird to me, man. It's like y'all supposed to be synchronized, and because you got a friend that's from another clique, now all of a sudden the rules don't apply. What's y'all's thoughts about the hybrid gangs? And I know it's heavy in New Jersey, but I'm sure it exists in other places. What you guys thoughts about that?
Well,
I'm gonna let them go first, because man,
I'll tell you this. I can speak from personal experience on that. Don't get me wrong, I'm older, so I'm not in the streets anymore. But from time to time, say years ago when I was a little younger, I would go back to the neighborhood. What hood guy don't go back to the neighborhood once in a while, check it out, go kick it with your old homies or whatever. When I was real active in the streets, we had a group of pretty much our enemies' eyes that was across the train tracks. And this was a big rivalry, right? So imagine me getting a little older, getting off the streets, start raising a family. I go back over there, and these same cats that we was in a bloody rivalry with, now they in the hood kicking with the homies. I don't know how to feel about that, because I'm like, dude, we was just trying to take each other's head off. Now this dude able to sit in the same park where 2 years ago he wouldn't have been able to do that. He would have been on the menu. So for me personally, that's where I personally decided, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out, because now I'm feeling like this is getting too weird, and I don't understand where the line is being drawn here, because now I'm confused. But come to find out, again, this is a situation where drugs are involved, and now they quote unquote getting money together. They neighborhood, my neighborhood, they kind of getting money together because now drugs are involved. So yeah, it get real tricky. And now since I'm older and I'm out of the game per se, I don't really understand this whole hybrid thing. It's different. To me, it's kind of different.
Yeah.
It's a new concept. I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
You know what it makes me think of, man, is like you know, when people bang and stuff and they're active on the front line or whatever, they're in a certain era, you know what I'm saying? And so those people, whoever they said was beefing with at that time or whatever, however the politics laid at that time, that's generally how they're going to perceive things even later on, 20 years later. So that's still who they're going to be beefing with. Even if somebody says, no, now OG, you know, we cool now. Like you said, we get money and, you know, well, he not really hearing all that because he's removed from that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not getting no money from that or whatever. So it kind of doesn't matter to him. He's like, that's still the ops. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care.
And you know what? It ain't even necessarily that they gotta be the ops because at this age, I don't have any ops or
Right. For the
anybody
ones
I'm
that
beefing
are
with per
invested
se.
in like that. Yeah, no, I get it.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, I still carry myself a certain way, and I'm like, all right, you got to kind of watch being in that area because you don't know who might see you. Even though, like I said, I don't have no enemies, but I agree with you definitely. Like, hey, whatever era you in, that's what you understand, and that's how you perceive
That's what you
things.
understand, right? It's pretty much
Yeah.
going to be your mindset even into old age and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, like I said, like that don't mean I'm necessarily actively trying to get at these dudes or not. And I'm not. I don't mean it to say that at some point we can become friends because let's be real. I mean, especially as you get older, you see some of these dudes you probably was into it when you was in high school or middle school. You like, man, we was kids. We ain't tripping off that no more.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, can it happen? Yeah, but when you got guys that's still active and this is going on while you're active, you're like, hold on, it's kind of off-putting to me, so I'm gonna separate myself from this because I'm not feeling this situation.
You know, the hybrid gangs, Mel, that's a damn good question, bro. The hybrid gangs, man, always really existed. They just existed at the top level because all the guys would sit down and make a
Yeah.
decision on how they're gonna chop the city up. And then they would make agreements. All right,
Yeah.
man, we're gonna do this. So it was already kind of hybrid. But what happened was, you know, competition,
Yeah.
the competitiveness. You know what I'm saying? And because of the way the city was structured, we were literally sitting on top of each other. So it was like a powder keg. It was gonna blow because everybody out there hungry. And when you hustling, the slightest mistake could cost you dinner that night. Like real for real, like in a real way. And so the hybrid people, gangs of the day, they not even really members. They not sanctioned. They name ain't on no paper. They can't name a name. They just sit at the crib and say, you know what? We GD. You know what? We blood. We crib. We this. We Hoover Street this or we that. You know, they just say it and they are it. And so they just go on Instagram or they go on Twitter and they just emulate something that they never really a part of. One week they GD, the next week they beat it. Like, that's how it's doing. That's how it literally happens right now. So
That's crazy.
in my era, bro, you just couldn't join. That wasn't
Right.
gonna happen.
Nope.
That wasn't gonna happen, bro.
You had to
And
get put
true,
on for real.
you had to get put on for real, like in a bad way too. Like it wasn't, oh man, come on in. Mm-mm. You
Yeah,
gonna
you
get
just don't
tested.
hang around and they be like, all right, you hung around enough. You down. No, you gotta go through something. You
Yeah,
gotta
go
put
through,
some work, G.
and you gotta put work in. So it's like this shit ain't no cakewalk, you know what I'm saying? And then when you in, you all the way in. So ain't no my brother graduation or my mom said I got to no. And what and your point? You
We
know what I'm
finna go
saying?
get
Like,
down and you won't.
you in, all the way.
Or you finna get the burnt force of this.
And the one thing, and I know Trez and he will go, we gonna laugh at this one. Ain't no way in the hell you could be on Instagram with your colors, you know? No way. There's no
No.
way you represent on if social media was out back then, cats would be coming up missing, man. You could not publicize your nation without a sanction and permission. You couldn't just go like nobody wasn't even supposed to know who you was affiliated unless you set tripping. If you ain't set tripping, if you ain't representing the set, you ain't got no bit. You can't be in the fucking grocery store with your shit bopping. Can't do that because the guy see you. One of them guys see you. They gonna follow you the way you supposed to be, and then everybody pop.
Yeah, people wasn't internet gangbanging back in the day. Even when the internet first came out like that or whatever, anybody on the internet was like, you automatically invalid. You're not for real talking like that.
Even in Cali, having friends in LA, they was laughing at. I was like, I was so naive. This is funny. I was so naive, man. I thought Cube was a real G. And my cousins be like, "Are you serious?" Like, man, he don't get no play here. Like, oh, okay. And I really thought he was, man. I mean, that's how I was in the shit. Yeah, Q, They didn't. They said, "No,
My man's is just he's a rapper.
That's it.
He's just a rapper.
Right. I used to think he was real, bro. And I was in the
I used to think it was real.
And I thought the nigga was, and I did, man. I was so not, because when you know what, we didn't know. I don't know if this is the way for y'all, because I know we're a generation apart, but we didn't really know how much danger we was in every day, bro.
Yeah,
you're
right.
We thought getting shot at was fun.
Yeah.
It was
like bullets missing your head and hitting the wall. We would laugh like, damn, Joe, you almost got hit. Giggling and shit,
We was outside rolling with the homies, thinking everything was sweet.
For real. Our car of choice was the box Chevy. Because you could
the Caprices,
hell yeah. The Landos, photos. And you could actually cut holes in the wheel wells and had the pistols and shit. And you could put a Mossberg in that back door, nasty. And so we always get the box Chevy or the big ass 9.8 Oldsmobiles. And
see, in them days I was a kid, and I used to look up to all of them dudes that was riding real tough. They had, they Lolos, we call them Lolos out here, or whatever, your slab, your load, whatever it was that you refer to it as. They was rolling, looking real pretty out there. And I was like, man, these dudes got it going on, like for real. But you didn't know like what it took to have that and how like volatile, you could lose that. You could lose that the next day. Then you got another one the next day after that because you hustling so tough. You know what I'm saying? Like, but we don't know the story. Like he got a repossession, but he just bought another car outright. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, we had
Crips. Man. We had Crips from Palomita, California, either Palomita or Pasadena. I can't remember. But anyway, they came to Chicago with Dayton's on a 6.4 Chevy, and we was in awe. Like those are Dayton's.
That was the rim of choice. You know what I'm saying? When I was 10 years old or whatever, 13 years old. Yeah, you had to have D's. You had some Dayton's. You had deep dish too. Oh man, like them is getting jacked. Bro. You know what I'm saying? Like that's when people used to jack. Like jacking was it was profitable back then. You know what I'm saying? With how Black people, we buy rims. You might have two sets of rims, one in the garage. People go into people's garage. Let me get the rims up out of there. You know what I'm saying? Like
you talking about I came jack the old boy at the drive-through for his
it was serious.
It
was
serious on the Mustang.
It was serious. You see a car, bro. Some things I need those.
We used to walk
And a
in
double
Burger King
burger
with a
with
nigga.
cheese.
Man, we walk in Burger King with a nigga and jack him at the line. Like, Joe, give me a cheeseburger and give me your keys. And I want you to count to 100. If you step out this Burger King, we're gonna pop your ass. For real. Like I thought it was weird. And the crazy part in Midwest, it was Trues and Vogues. We rode
Yeah.
Trues and Vogues. If you had a pair of Trues and Vogues, it was a responsibility that I steal some Trues and Vogues from the GD. I had to.
Mhm.
I got credit for that. I got credit for robbing the GD with them Vogues and the Trues. Like, where you get them Trues and Vogues from? Oh, bro, I was 16. Where them GDs at? Yeah. I got dude. They're like, oh shit, bro.
Yeah,
Shit,
man.
3 packs
Anybody
on us,
come,
bro.
if
You get
somebody
3
came
packs.
through with some triple gold Dayton's, man, they was the man. You know what I'm saying? Like they won that day. They came to the park. They came to the park triple gold Dayton's. Oh shit.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's I wish I would have got here earlier, but I couldn't. But it is really weird how the dangers and stuff that we was in, it was such a family cohesive type thing, though. It wasn't. I guess we had this youth and fearless gene or something, man, because it was a lot of bonding, man. We went through some shit. We went through a lot of shit as friends. Set tripping, man. We went through a lot, man.
Yeah, we definitely did some stupid shit. I mean, it ain't no point acting like that. But I think beyond being a part of a street organization, that's just kind of like the life of a normal teenager, especially growing up in the inner city, man. You know,
Yeah.
you hang with your group of friends and you get to going out and doing dumb shit. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just that's just what it is. But you know, that's just growing pains. You know,
Mm-hmm.
usually, you know what I'm saying, you'll grow up and you'll understand, all right, I don't need to be doing this type of activity no more. So I need to move on to doing probably this. Or, you know, you start as you get older, you start realizing, all right, I don't, you know, certain things you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
So I just think
Should you
that's
be in your
less of a game thing.
should you be in
That's more of a
your
game thing.
should you be in your 30s and 40s still banging?
It depends. If you ask me personally, I say this. It depends on what you consider banging. If you mean
Actively
like
banging.
standing out on the corner, if you talking about standing out on the corner with the homies, just going nothing, just wasting your life away, or you know what I'm saying, running around, jumping on people for being in the opposing gang, whatever. Hell no, you're a fucking idiot. You have absolutely learned nothing about life, and you don't need to pass on. You don't need to collect your $200. You probably should just go straight to jail at that point because you've learned nothing about life. But if we talking about somebody who's just saying like, all right, you know, I still got my affiliations and you still rep your shit, but it's not like you're doing it to the point where you banging or you looking for trouble or something. I mean, I personally don't see no wrong with it. Fuck, I'll do that shit. Um, but no, or we talking about grown ass men that's out here. No, hell no. You got me up too damn right to be doing it. Because at this point, and you're in your 30s and your 40s, you're supposed to be raising a family. You ain't even supposed to be in the streets. You should be focused on making sure your family's straight, making sure your life's straight. You should be
Right.
doing things that are actually productive. And a 40-year-old man standing on the corner with a rag on his head throwing up gang signs and Nick G ain't gonna cut it.
And usually you get disbarred, you know, from your. I know that's the culture here in Chicago. You get to a certain age. Like a couple years ago, I went back to my old neighborhood, and you know, I carried a lot of rank in my organization. And the young guys was like, you know, it's respect to you, OG, but we would advise you not to come back around here. And I was like, wow. He's like, man, Cat's not gonna respect you, man. These cats
Yeah.
ain't been brought in like you. I mean, you OG,
Yeah.
but they don't respect you, man. If anything, they're gonna be intimidated. They're gonna try to do something to you because
Yeah.
they think you're gonna call something on them. They think you're gonna call a shot. And they can't risk it. So they'll
Yeah.
retaliate. And shit, I got my ass from the hell over there. I got out.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember, I don't know if y'all know, but y'all remember Vlad, if I'm not mistaken, on the Vlad TV interview, he asked, I think it was G Herbo, how would the streets be if they free Larry Hoover?
Oh shit,
And
Larry be in trouble.
yeah, and that's what he was saying. Like, man, somebody might try to kill Larry because just like you just said, it's not that same structure anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same game anymore. That's another reason why your old ass don't need to be in the streets no more because these cats, like you said, they came up different. You know, they came up in a different era. They got different values and different morals. And they doing something totally different. And you go out there with your own antiquated ways, it ain't gonna cut it. And they ain't definitely ain't trying to hear that. And they will get rid of you quick.
Mm-hmm. Out of fear. Like one of my it sounds weird. I'm ashamed to say this, but one of my mentors in that game said fear is gonna bring you respect, but fear is also gonna bring you to graveyard.
Facts.
Because they fear you, but they know they gotta remove you because they fear you so much.
Yeah.
And you gotta keep everybody belly full. And when you calling the shots, you gotta go without eating, but you gotta make sure they eat. And they can't never know you starving, but you gotta make sure they fed. Because if they get hungry, they're gonna eat you.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't really got no choice. It really ain't a benefit to be a shot caller. Really, you a marked man. Your time is limited. Like your time gonna be up. It's not when. It's not if. It's when. You know.
Right.
That's the way the structure is made. So a lot of them they get addicted to the power, but they don't know how to get in and just get on up out of there. They stay around, man. They stay around too long, man, and make one too many enemies, and they make too many friends. You ain't got no friends in that game. Like, ain't no friends. Ain't no friends. Associates, you know, but ain't no friends. Because you're gonna make decisions that you're gonna be able to sleep with yourself at night. Some of the decisions you got to make. You don't have no option. Because if in that game, there's really the rules can like change to fit anybody's personal opinion. Like, yeah, back then, women and children was off limits, but if I can't get to you, who you think I'm gonna go to? If you hadn't, how you think I'm gonna get you to come out? You owe me money, all right? I know what time your daughter get off school, bro. How you want to do this? I mean, that's it. Like, cats don't really be thinking about that side of the game. You know,
Right.
we be sitting there I'm playing, man. In Chicago, man, I'm playing Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers with serial killers. My best friends laid out 10, 20 motherfuckers playing Mario Brothers, eating church's chicken and shit. They don't care about that shit.
Damn.
They don't. They don't. Like Haru said, we really was on some dumb shit. We really we some fortunate individuals. I know I'm fortunate being him because I know I did some dumb shit. I hang around some crazy motherfuckers, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, some of the things we talk about school is pure stupidity and dangerous at the end of the day. I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Because the dark side to some of the stuff that we're talking about, there's a lot of situations I've had involvement in, and I probably wouldn't be here, but somehow I'm still here. So I'm very appreciative of my life. And being able to say that I'm one of the ones that made it out because I got a lot of friends that didn't make it. whether they was lost to getting killed or they in prison doing lengthy sentences.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree with that 100%.
I wanted to mention something, man. The gang celebrity, the celebrity person that promotes gang culture, he used to really make me up. He used to burn us up. I didn't like it. Like the Jay Prince type guys, I used to shake my head, bro. Like he's an older man. You know what I'm saying? His
Yeah.
conduct right now, back then, no sir. I don't care what rank you got. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. You don't run your mouth like that. And you can see this new era. The young guys not intimidated by dude. They're like, what's up? It's up and it's stuck then. What you want to do? Don't come to Atlanta. They not, he not mysterious and feared no more, bro. And the Suns, they not Jay Prince. They not him.
Nah, they far from it.
So
Well, the game is different, and the thing is, he's still trying to operate on old school values with some new school cats that ain't trying to hear none of that ish. So, I mean, but you know what I'm saying? This is what happens generation after generation, because you got to think when my generation was coming up, we weren't trying to hear none of them old cats were saying, man, y'all crackheads, y'all dope things.
yeah.
Well, you can't tell me nothing.
Yeah.
Look at you. Bro, you can't tell me nothing. Get out the way. And then you got people like Joe Prince who still trying to have old school morals and move like a boss. But you got these new age cats, they don't care about none of that.
Bro.
They don't give a damn about your respect.
Mhm.
They take your head off.
Mhm.
You walk on the street, you walk on the block telling them, no, you gonna respect me because I did this. Bah! Man, get the hell up out of here. Fighting with that shit.
Mhm. Mhm. That's real, bro. Mhm. Mm.
Another question here. Now that you guys are like no longer influenced or involved or surrounded by those type of cultures as much, or anymore, are you guys still like profiled because of it, even though you may not be involved in it?
I would think so.
Me personally, yeah, in certain social circles, but like I spoke on this earlier, but I feel like if you know me personally, the individual that I am, and you know me, you're not holding that against me because one, even when I was out there, I carried myself in a certain way. I wasn't reckless with it, and I wasn't giving it to any and everybody. I never gave it to nobody who didn't deserve it. I still respected my elders. I still helped older ladies. Still made sure kids was good. Just like you saying, I was a positive person. Hey man, go to school, bro. Don't be over here with us. This ain't what you want to do. Or you get the kids a couple dollars, man, send them down the street, get them something to eat. No, man, don't get away from that. But in certain social circles, yeah, I said it earlier. You can be networking and talking to somebody, and maybe I don't know what come out. Maybe I say something, or maybe somebody digs some old stuff up and want to come to me and bring it to me. And you start maybe getting dirty look or a side eye. And it's like, at this point, what is what I'm saying? What does my affiliation with this particular organization have to do with the person I am? You see me, you've been knowing me, it ain't been no issues yet. So why all of a sudden is it a problem now? Everybody, you live this life, however long you're here, you're gonna do You know what I'm saying? You're gonna do a whole bunch in your life, man. You're gonna make some mistakes and some stuff I don't even consider mistakes, but you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're gonna do things that probably not in favorable to society. But in the same breath, you can you can be redeemed, and you can redeem yourself, and you can come back from it, and you can still move on certain things.
Right.
So me personally, me being a gang member and coming from this life, me interacting with other people, even the younger guys, the older guys who's a part of it too, you know, I got a certain level of understanding and patience with them on the strength of we got that in common. So that part of me is not all I am.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I still read books. I still care deeply about Black people. You know, I still help the community. You know, I still care. You know, I'm still raising a family. I work. So just because I'm a part or was a part of that particular organization don't mean that I'm inherently a bad person or somebody that's just out here looking for trouble or want trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. What about
I
you?
think it just depends on the circle. I just think it depends on the social circle or who we talking about or
Yeah.
who has an issue with it, basically.
Yeah. What about you, Kansu?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to a degree, because sorry, I just don't frequent places where I have a history.
Right.
Um, Again, you know, gang culture varies depending upon your proximity and where you live and environment. Chicago has a unique environment, man, because we're so highly segregated. Um, and the police force is what it is here. Um, so you're never really out of it. Like, I'm not out of it. I'm affiliated, but I'm not active and I don't participate in anything and I don't ever want to. But I'm never gonna be put out of it. I'm always gonna be in that box. I mean, I got tattoos all over my arms and shit with shit that tells you what time it is, you know? Shit that's already on file. So it's always gonna be there, you know. And then, you know, my life back then, I had lost both my parents 3 months apart from each other. My family was pretty much just taken in a matter of weeks, and it was just me and my sister. I had to raise them, so the only family I had was, you know, gang culture. And I didn't know what therapy was back then, and so I became really, really good at hurting people. Man, I took my anger out on people, and I didn't have any sense of humanity or human awareness. And in that lifestyle, you become really valuable when you have that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't no off button. It was just, what? What do you say? Boom. That was it. And it's kind of an empty life, you know. I felt really bad about myself. I felt like, you know, I didn't deserve respect because I didn't get nobody respect. Only people I gave respect to was the gang and Chief, you know. I didn't see people. I just saw problems. I didn't see people. So that kind of mentality, you never really leave it. It's you manage it and you try to work through it because it's a very psychological thing to
Yeah.
live that life at a certain level. Like when you get really, really heavy into that shit, you lose a piece of yourself, man. You never get it back. You don't get it back because the life, man. You're around other degenerate people, other dysfunctional people, and they have these dysfunctions that everybody is fight or flight. You know what I'm saying? it could be a regular. We could be talking about Jordan versus Magic, and the next thing you know, somebody pull a gun because they didn't like the way you said something about Magic and pop you. I mean, these kind of individuals is just who was hanging around the neighborhood. So
Right.
when you experience shit like that, and then when I was growing up, you wasn't allowed to leave. You know what I'm saying? That was like a coward. And once that get out, you everywhere you go, you a problem. Because you know nation business. You know nation business. You're not supposed to be out there. So I do think I'm profiled. I definitely do. That's why I try to stay on the up and up and live my life lawfully, respectfully. Don't get involved in none of that game, none of that rah-rah. I stay out
Right.
the way. I stay out the way, man. Seat belts, turn signals and shit. I stay out the way.
Stand up
I'm too old.
citizen.
I can't go to the county, man. I'm too old, man. They see these shit on my arm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
About to close up, man. It's been about I would say 2 hours change. But, any
I
last
hate I
words?
missed it, man. I hate I missed it. I
No,
just hate I missed it.
had a good time, man. We went back over some of the discussion, and we'll definitely have you back on, man. As we begin to continue the podcast format. So, thanks for coming through. Any last words, Kansu, as far as just the topic of just gang culture, history, and
Mm-hmm.
the
Well, I could say, man, hopefully, with this generation, Generation Z and some of the millennials, do your best, kind of stay away from this culture, man. There is some good aspects. There are some disrespect and misleading things. It just wasn't true. It wasn't. It was not true. My era, there was a lot of benefits from having people that wanted to protect their community and keep the community beautiful and thriving. But in today's culture, man, it's not feasible. It's not healthy. And I just hope, younger folks really take heed to that. But great discussion, man. Great build. Kind of brought back some memories, so I appreciate that.
Hopefully some good ones, man.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah. One thing I'll say, I think that when you study gang culture and history, and even just from a human perspective, and you understand that also any social order is gonna have these type of elements in it. We're starting to see that with primates a little bit, in other animals as well. I think that's something that's always going to be a part of who we are as humans, whether we call it gangs, whether we call it organizations or whatever. I think there's going to be some type of social order that exists, that will always exist. And I think that's something we have to get comfortable with and get used to and really understand the dynamics of it and how it functions, because it further helps explain us as humans, as a social species, is how we interact with each other, how we respond to pressure. And, I think it's a wonderful dynamic, regardless of the negatives and positives. Overall, it's just a wonderful dynamic. But Maurice, any last words?
Yeah, kids, at this point, I wouldn't advise you get into a street organization at all. That's one thing. Stay away from drugs. That's another thing. I'm laughing, but I'm dead ass serious. Like, yeah, man, stay away from drugs, man. Stay away from that life. It's not worth it, because for every Kasu and for every brother Maurice, there's 50 or 60 that probably didn't make it out either. So
Man.
That's
Hey.
Those are not favorable odds. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm not into gambling when the odds are that stacked against me. So if those are the odds I'm looking at, I don't even want to deal with it at all. I wouldn't.
Right.
I wouldn't even. Yeah, I wouldn't even get involved in that type of situation. And plus, if I could be honest, if I knew what I knew now, being a square is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm not missing nothing. Um, I ain't looking over my shoulder. I ain't got no worries. So yeah, man, just man, value your life, cherish it. Don't waste your time putting yourself in situations that you don't need to be in. Whether that's taking penitentiary chances or flirting with death, man, don't do it. Don't waste your time. You only got so much time here. Enjoy it. Make the best of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because this is it's one thing that you can't get back in this time. So don't waste it.
Mm.
Good point.
Mm.
Good point.
Major. That's major right there. Man.
Yeah. We definitely gonna have a follow-up show. Gotta have a follow-up show. I think even discussing other elements of it, because fortunately, you two brothers and you guys were able to make it out of those type of situations, but we know the odds and likelihood of some not necessarily making it out of those situations. So we definitely gonna talk about that and just some more information regarding the social structure of this type of lifestyle, this culture, and the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll definitely have follow-up part 2. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to Tommy Morgan. He said lots of social engineering. Absolutely, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, shout out to Planet Free Spirit, the Bar Reloaded, coming through. And overall, I think it was a great show. Glad to have you, Kansu. Thanks, Trish, for coming through. And Maurice, as always, we finna shut it down. You guys have a great night. Don't forget to follow the You Ain't Gonna Give It To Me Like That podcast. That is where we're going to be doing all of our new shows at. The link is in the chat. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe on that. Turn the notification bell on because we'll be moving everything over there. All right. Peace.